Hi and welcome to JMC Jams. I believe this is number 7, although I'm starting to lose count now. We've kind of aimed for as many as we could over the semester and it's turning into a regular weekly thing. So much for the nearly regular podcast. Anyway, today I have Bob Regan, who is here because of a special thing that we're doing, which we do every year. It's the annual Hearst Award for Excellence in Journalism. And Bob's got a few stories to tell, so I'm hoping that we can just keep the conversation flowing, Bob, and welcome to JMC and to JMC Jams.
Well, thank you so much for having me. We can have a free-floating conversation. I can pontificate at length.
Good, that's what I like to hear. Yeah. So, Bob, I mean, the reason we, seriously, the reason that we are giving you this award this year is because of this amazing thing called Operation Song that you've founded and you've nurtured and has really impacted the lives of many people. So how did that kind of happen? How did your background lead you to creating this thing?
Well, it was largely by accident. I had an idea. Backing up just a little bit, I was a professional songwriter in Nashville for many decades. From 1985 to probably the early mid-2000s. And at one point in the early 2000s when Iraq and Afghanistan were, the theater of battle was hot, I had the opportunity to do several armed forces entertainment tours. And we traveled the world with a band of songwriters and we played our songs. And then we'd always talk to the troops afterwards. And a lot of people would come up and be curious about songwriting and expressed that, I could never write a song in a million years. And then I would try to turn the conversation around and say, well, tell me about yourself. And then they would proceed to tell us these jaw-dropping stories. So my thought was, what would happen if we combined these storytellers in Nashville with these amazing stories and maybe help the men and women in the military to process a little bit of what they'd been through. Mm-hmm. And that was the genesis of Operation Song. So I found someone at the VA, a music therapist named Tina Haynes, who said, let's give it a try. And from almost the first day, it just clicked. The veterans loved it, the therapists loved it, the military community, and it just kind of snowballed. Mm-hmm.
So really what you're doing there is giving these veterans and active personnel as well,
yep,
active duty personnel, an opportunity to tell their stories through the power of song. And so, of course, storytelling is at the heart of what Operation Song is about, which yep, is ultimately really what good journalism does, mm-hmm, enabling these stories to emerge.
Right.
As a songwriter, did you find that you were telling stories for others, or were you kind of doing your own storytelling?
With my Operation Song hat, no, I tried to take myself completely, my own personal, feelings about anything and just try to be the most transparent lens I could be for their story to pass through me. So all I was doing was just trying to facilitate them being able to express themselves in a new way, a musical way. And so if I did have a thought, well, what about this? But I would always clear it with them, say, is this how you would say it? Does this feel right musically? Is this the right tone, the right mood? And so we're always just very interactive, going back and forth, using their words, not mine.
So as the facilitator, I guess listening is a vital skill, as well as, of course, developing empathy with the other participants.
Oh, absolutely. You have to be, I would tell the songwriters, we've had hundreds of songwriters take part now. I always tell them, probably the first hour or two, you're probably going to be, you have your therapist hat on. Just ask open-ended questions, get them to feel comfortable, build trust. And then when it's time to turn your hat around and be a songwriter, then it's on. Uh-huh. So that's why the Nashville community is so great for this, because there's a large number of very accomplished songwriters. And all of them, to a man and a woman, are very, very gratified and thrilled to be able to do this. So yeah, they take everyone takes the mission very seriously, which is to do justice to the story and knowing the price they paid to have that story to tell, and we need to take that seriously enough to, again, honor that and justify it.
For sure, and that service that you're actually engaging in is vital. Really, it's cathartic.
I use that word a lot.
Yeah, for these guys.
At its best, it's cathartic.
Yeah,
and they can. A lot of times, the veterans won't really know what they want to write about, even what if they have a song in it. Most think they don't, but if you get people talking as journalists, I'm sure you know this. People always get around to what's important to them, and once you songwriters have these antennae where you're listening for lines, you're listening for themes, you're saying, what is the big idea here? And once the songwriter's onto that, like a bloodhound on the scent, off you go, and then you can take their words and sing them back and make them rhyme, and it can be a very disarming and cathartic for the person we're working with.
And so what I'm curious about is, I mean, these guys are accomplished songwriters, and they have these skills to be able to extract that story from, sometimes from the kind of muddled thoughts that a veteran with PTSD or, any other kind of issue who is sitting there in front of them has. Are they trained counselors as well, or are they simply just doing their songwriting job?
No. And one thing, we still try to do it whenever possible. At the beginning, I was pretty adamant that I wanted, trained therapists to be there, either in the room or on site. But then, just because, if you're taking the lid off a pot of somebody who's, been places and done things that a lot of us can't imagine, I didn't want to trigger somebody and do more harm than good. But that's never happened. So no, the songwriters are just empathetic. One thing about songwriters, and probably just certainly true with my own life and career, throughout my career as a songwriter, I was always able, if something were happening, something good, something bad, something awful, I would just keep, pulling it out and spreading it all out on the table and trying to make sense of it. Put it into a song, put it in a verse and a chorus with some resolution. So all the songwriters are very used to that. That's their stock in trade. But the other thing I'll say, I mentioned the songwriters are all very gratified to do this. If you are a commercial songwriter, your job is to create commerce. And you have to write something that say, okay, what are the trends this week, this month, this year? How can I get something on the radio? How can I write a song that an artist is going to want to record? And sometimes it can be a little shallow, let's face it.
Yeah.
And none of my songs, of course. All my songs have depth and validity at every level. But anyway, the songwriters are so gratified in this situation to just be able to hear a real story and be able, you're probably not going to move the needle on your bank account, but you are going to have a significant impact on the person sitting across from you. And that's, again, the songwriters to a man and a woman say, man, that was, I've heard many times a songwriter leave and say, that was the best day I've ever had as a songwriter.
Yeah, because
I feel like it really mattered.
And I guess, that whole process of creativity is kind of alive in that session, isn't it?
Yes.
When you're listening out for those stories and you're finding that thread that's going to be able to weave together into a piece of music. And how do these songs get heard? I mean, are you guys recording these as well? Do they record them, the veterans themselves?
No, the veterans, it's by and large don't. Once in a blue moon, somebody would be able to sing. We'd love to have them get up there and sing their own song. But that doesn't happen very often. Most have no musical skills. None of them have, very, very few have ever picked up a journal and written down their thoughts. So it's a completely kind of a foreign, yet the music is universal. Everybody likes some kind of music, so we approach it from that, and it's not threatening. But anyway, about the question, how do we get the songs out there? A lot of the songwriters are pretty good singers, and they might have little home studios, and they can go in and do recordings of the songs. And we do that. At the very least, we like to get a good guitar vocal. Some writers will go back and do a full production, release ready. And then we have all our songs on a Bandcamp page, broken down by different retreats, different programs we're doing. And you can find them that way. We have a whole bunch of songs on YouTube. Sometimes we'll do videos. We're doing a World War II preservation project. We're trying to write with as many World War II veterans as we can while they're still with us. And we always do videos on that. So we have probably 10 plus little vignettes with World War II veterans.
Yeah.
If you want to get choked up, look at any one of those World War II songs. I recommend Good Co-Pilot is one. Another one is Guardian Angels. A wonderful World War II veteran named Paul Frederick. He was at Iwo Jima looking from the boat, and he saw the flag go up. And I said, what did you think about that? And he said, we thought the war was over. The war was not over.
No, and that's an interesting journalistic story as well.
Yeah.
The raising the flag at Iwo Jima, of course, that had to be reshot because the shot wasn't captured the first time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
We don't need to know that. Disregard that.
So that's a photo that we always see.
Right. So that's, and I didn't really realize this or think about this at the beginning of Operation Song, but all these songs are very intensely personal, but these veterans are speaking about, Da Nang, the Normandy, Iwo Jima, all these places they've been, and you're kind of filling in some little gaps in his, taking together all these songs or kind of creating a little very personal history of all these different conflicts.
Yeah, I bet there's an amazing collection of stories there which are just ready to be kind of curated and put into a format.
Well, we've worked a little bit with the Library of Congress. They have a thing called the Veterans History Project, and they try to collect stories and mementos, but then we don't have the resources to do this, but they have data points. So if a documentarian or a filmmaker wants to know about a particular conflict or something, they go there and they have all these data points, and they can access all these stories.
Yeah.
So we've tried to write as many stories as we can with the Library of Congress to make sure those stories are accessible.
And what is amazing, really, the way I see it is that, sure, Operation Song is helping these veterans to, I guess, come to terms with their suffering and, move on in a way. At least come to terms with what went on. But at the same time, what we have here is just like an oral history, a form of storytelling that needs to be preserved as well.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to do. And again, that was something that never would have occurred to me at the beginning. But once we started getting more and more songs, I started being able to connect veterans. And I say, wait a minute. So you were in, Bin Log or Da Nang or Khe Sanh? I go, John Taylor was in Khe Sanh. Really, he was. And then I'll be able to make that connection.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of dots, and it's certainly not the whole picture, but the little episodes that we've explained are very enlightening, and I feel valuable historically and journalistically.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's this collecting of stories and putting them together, curating them. I mean, this is what good journalism, good storytelling, and when we think about the other programs we have in the school, from like advertising and branding and brand communication to public relations, we're there telling these stories,
Yep. Really, the difference is we take the story and, again, try to make it rhyme and give it a melody.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
It's the same thing. You have to come up with a line that pulls the audience in when they first hear the first line. They want to go, really, I want to hear more. Then you lead them along, and then there's the chorus, which is the big idea. And then the song goes on, and then you release them at the end. I call it, you try to stick the landing.
Yeah, yeah.
To where it wraps up with resolution. And again, that's what's effective with the veterans. And we're not able to fix anybody with a capital F, but if there's one episode that they've been struggling with, that they can't make sense of, and like you said, emotions can be scrambled. If you have PTSD or a traumatic brain injury, there was a lot of TBI, traumatic brain injury, in Iraq and Afghanistan, undiagnosed, sadly. But your thoughts and emotions are scrambled. And if you just can get somebody to spill everything out, and they can't make sense of it, but together we make sense of it, and it resolves. And that one episode, is you've diffused its power for a little bit. Yeah. One of my favorite quotes, a female songwriter who'd suffered from military sexual trauma, which is sadly still an issue in the military. And she said, now I don't have to think about it anymore. I can just play my song.
Yeah.
I went, victory.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Not quite job done, but certainly
no, it's just
you're
one little
helping things
thing.
along.
I think it's one more tool in their toolbox.
Yeah.
Say, what? Wait a minute, I can express myself. I can tell these things to people.
Yeah.
And if I do, it can release a little bit of some shameful, traumatic episode and remove some of its power.
And I can imagine these sessions, well, I can't imagine actually, because I've not been in that kind of a situation, right? But when you go into the room with the veteran and the ice breaks, right? And they really kind of open up to you. That must be quite emotionally exhausting, right?
It's a combination. It can be exhilarating. I mean, sometimes I'll walk out of these sessions just, flying really high because I know I cracked the code on this particular veteran. And I feel like it's, when you get that one moment when, they say something or you say something, you can feel the tell, like in a poker game when the veteran they're taken aback, and then it's like the tumblers of a lock just opened. It goes, and then the door opens, and they start, revealing things that maybe, not that they were hiding, but a lot of things they hadn't even really considered themselves.
Yeah. And I mean, I spoke to you earlier on in the week about a similar organization called Operation Surf, where veterans are, again, like, so they go through this cathartic experience, but through the power of the ocean. And there's a community that's built up around that. So these veterans end up, like, traveling around together. They know each other from one year to the next, even though they've been in the military at different times and so on.
Right.
Is a similar kind of a community there for Operation Song as well?
Well, we're working on that. That was something, a few years in, I realized that, you're creating this kind of a peak experience that's very, very unlike anything they're used to having in the normal course of their lives. And a lot of them don't want that to be over, because I think in the military that happens too. You bond and you have these amazing experiences, some traumatic, but some triumphant as well, and you're sharing that with this team. And then when you get out of the military, poof, that's gone, and you're just kind of sitting there in your couch going, what the hell was that, and what do I do now? So when we create a kind of a peak experience or something cathartic, I feel like it's important for them to feel like there's still a community. So we have Operation Song alumni. Anyone who's been through the program can take part in that. And we have bi-weekly meetings, whether it's like groups, meet with songwriters. And sometimes, one person in the group will say, man, I got an idea that I feel like I need to write. Sometimes they'll write a group song. And then people can drop in from Zoom, because we work in several locations around the country now.
Yeah.
And so that's gratifying. But again, I do no harm. I want to make sure that if we provide, again, a peak cathartic experience, it's not like, okay, gone, move on next. Here's some way you can have a soft landing from that and continue the community.
I think that's just absolutely amazing. And just to kind of switch it over to the award, I guess when we think about song, there's other awards, right, that we think would be appropriate for an operation such as this, like a Grammy or some kind of CMA award or whatever. Right. And I do believe you have been around the Grammy.
I've been nominated for a Grammy. I did not win, but I got to suit up and show up, and it was a pretty remarkable experience.
Yeah,
I'd like to go back and put one on my mantle. We'll see. I wish there were an award for some kind of altruistic use of music, but the Hearst Award is extremely gratifying for me, and completely unexpected, and just kind of, I'm happy to accept the award, but I always try to shine the light on the veterans who entrusted us with those stories in order to make all this happen.
Absolutely, and yeah, for sure, we're not a Grammy, but the Hearst Award, I think it's rewarding, like, all of this amazing work that you have done over the years and the organization that you've built up through the power of storytelling and through the power of song.
Yep.
I'm super looking forward to tomorrow evening when, we'll have the event and it'll culminate in
I'm a little bit scared, but I'm going to suit up, show up, and run off at the mouth. My specialty.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I would ask you to sing a song for us, but I think that, you know, maybe we're running out of time a little bit. So.
Okay. Yes. If you want to, and I always tell people this is Operation Song, not Operation Talk. So I invite everyone to go to the website, look up some songs. If you just go to operationsong.org, and you can see all kinds of video clips and links to songs and videos, and some of these World War II stories are extremely compelling. But again, there's over 1,800 songs now, and people say, "Can you pick a favorite?" And I go, "I can't. They're all my favorite.
Yeah.
I think some are more impactful than others, but I'll leave that for our gentle viewers to decide. Please go check out the website."
Yeah. And I guess that every time a new veteran comes in through that door, it's another story, it's another take.
Yep. And that's what's gratifying. I'm retired from Operation Song, and that was I would laughingly, jokingly tell people I want Operation Song to outlive me without killing me in the process. And I started out just doing nothing but writing, but then slowly as it got bigger and bigger, my writing went down and the admin burden went up until I was just being crushed under 60, 70 hours a week of emails, details, and travel planning and event planning and social media. Anyway, I'm very gratified that it's living on past me, and we have a great staff taking it forward. And I hope they've already done way more things than I could have envisioned and imagined.
Yeah.
And I hope that keeps on.
Well, absolutely. And you know, it's an honor to have you as our Hearst Award honoree this year, Bob. Absolutely amazing operation that you're running there, or that you've founded. And just to kind of sign things off, you know, this just, I guess, like talking to Bob, it highlights how important storytelling is in not just in giving a voice to people, but also in helping, in communicating, so the problems which are at the heart of many of the things that we are all going through.
Yep, and one thing I want to touch on this a little bit in my speech tomorrow, but everyone knows how crucial the First Amendment is, how vital it is. I think it's less often acknowledged that we have a military who takes an oath to protect and defend that Constitution, not protect and defend a dictator or an authoritarian. And so I think a good example of that was General Mark Milley, when he was kind of used as a prop for a particular event, and he pushed back hard on that and realized, he said that was not appropriate for me to perceive as doing anything political, and contrast that with the use of the military in so many countries around the world to defend and protect an authoritarian regime. So the military has less often acknowledged how important they are to the First Amendment and to all the press and everything that's protected under that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Bob. I really appreciate it. I've enjoyed this conversation and looking forward to tomorrow as well.
And that went by quickly.
It did.
And I still have more to say.
Oh, for sure. Okay, thank you, Bob. And this wraps up this episode of JMC Jams. Thank you.
Thank you.